Hey friends, welcome back. We are doing another book review. This one today is on the book titled Think by Matt Church and Peter Cook. And if you followed along on the last video where we were going through the Thought Leaders book, this one here is kind of a deeper dive into the pink sheeting process. And I know you're thinking, what is a pink sheet? Stay tuned, because honestly, this book was probably one of the most impactful books I've ever read on being able to take a concept in your head and be able to convey additional creative meaning behind it. So let's talk a little bit about the book, Pink. So it's about using pink sheets to capture and expand your ideas. And again, the authors are Matt Church and Peter Cook. And just a little bit about me. If you head over to brandonyeager.com, you can get some additional information. Also, if you would like to get the most out of this video, feel free to head over, subscribe to my newsletter. I'm going to be putting a copy of the mind map in a PDF format, as well as probably a Word document format available for you to be able to download so you can follow along and get the most out of this book summary. Okay, so an overview of what this book is all about. First, the book is divided into two sections. Part one is talking about the pink sheets, why, how, and what. And then the second part is actually going through some pink sheet examples where they do some deep dives. And we're going to be talking about that here in a minute. But first, the most important thing with pink sheeting that Matt talks about is getting started with a pink sheet is more important than reading the entire book. And they talk very much about being a doer, not just a reader, and being able to make sure that you're taking action on being able to create pink sheets, because that's going to be how your brain is going to be able to start to figure out the metaphors and models. And we're going to dive into that here more shortly. So what is a pink sheet? So basically, it's a tool used as a thought leader to make an IP snapshot, an intellectual property snapshot. So basically, it's an idea and it's a way of thinking deliberately and deeply about something. And we're going to kind of look at it from a high level as well as a lower level perspective. Why is it called a pink sheet? Well, basically, they're not positive, but they believe that's probably what the color of paper was that was in Matt's office printer at the time. So that is a little bit about what a pink sheet is. And in part two of the book, we're going to be talking about others. We're going to go through a couple famous examples as well as some of their own internal pink sheet examples. And then they have 52 kind of high level examples talking about the pink sheet. So why are pink sheets so important? First, they allow you to think consciously, which is a key about your practice, about whatever business model or whatever idea it is that you're looking to convey, to take somebody from point A to point B and move them and persuade them. It allows you to think very consciously about that idea. And it's a way of expanding your thinking, and you're able to put some structure to it, and it'll help you do it more effectively. So some of the benefits is you are going to have more conviction. You'll believe you are an expert, and it will help you overcome imposter syndrome and thinking you aren't good enough. So that's imposter syndrome. And most people go through a feeling of that they might, why is anybody going to listen to them? Why should anyone want to hear their ideas and their inputs? Many people struggle with that, myself included. And I think even if you are an expert in a particular topic, I think I have a really good knowledge on multifamily investing and real estate investments, and we've done some self-storage investing at this point. And I feel like I have a pretty good handle on that. However, on a scale of 1 to 10, I maybe think I'm a 5. I see all these people who have crazy success with it. And maybe I feel like I'm not good enough to teach in various topics along those lines. But if somebody's a 1 and they've never done any real estate investing before, we have a amazing value that we can bring to people to help shortcut their learning. So they also say that a commercial PhD is whenever you have 52 pink sheets in a particular area of expertise. And I think something that's pretty important, especially as I begin my future self journey and trying to become more disciplined with my habits, is you can become an expert in a particular field. You don't have to be one to get started. You can learn as you go along and think deeply about the particular topic and be able to essentially get your commercial PhD in that regard. It allows you to think about the topic in depth. Pink sheets give depth of thinking and many angles to take the conversation. It also it gets you out of your own head. If you're a teacher, an expert, or a thought leader, knowledge and value is inside of your head. And the brains are great for storage, but retrieval is sometimes an issue. And I thought that that was pretty key. And I think that's why items like Obsidian, Evernote, Notion, those types of second brain, personal knowledge management type concepts are so awesome. Like I know that sometimes whenever I just want to go and find something quickly and I pull up Obsidian, I do it because I know it's so fast. I don't have to search through like a menu structure to get to it. I'm able to quickly get to the information that I'm looking for. And the ideas are able to get organized into a body of work, or you're able to kind of see things from a larger perspective. So, continuing on with some of the benefits, think once, deliver often. You're able to use it again and again in different contexts. And what they talk about in the book here is you're able to kind of keep the concept, you're able to keep most of the context, and that can include your models and your metaphors. But you're going to be able to change the content, your stories, statistics, your case studies, different things along those lines, and adapt it to different context areas. So it can also be part of a speech, part of a book, training modules, or coaching session. You're able to reuse these IP snapshots in various forms. Okay, so moving on. It why are they so important? Because full spectrum thinking, Aristotle suggested you'll need all three to convince somebody of something, and that is logos, pathos, and ethos. Logos is thinking logically and rationally. Pathos is the emotional appeal, and ethos is the ethical appeal, the character and credibility. If we look at the left hand side, the left side, it is your logic and reason. In particular of your brain, they say that the left side of your brain is the logic and reason side, and the right side of your brain is the creativity and relationships. And there's a model on page 14, the model four quadrants, that it's kind of interesting. Where we are in the four quadrants, we all favor one of them. And where we best learn from and also communicate from, and we think that everybody else does as well, but it's simply not true. Different people have different strengths, different weaknesses, and what we want to be able to do is, again, pull in this full spectrum thinking. We're able to kind of incorporate different things that motivate people. So we must be able to mix logos and pathos. Okay, what is a pink sheet? An overview. So again, we have the context. It's up on the top. The concept is in the middle, and the content is at the bottom. So let's kind of dive into it. So context, we have the model itself. This is a diagram where the idea lives. It can be shared across many pink sheets. For example, if you have a model that has, let's say it's like a Venn diagram type of thing where you have three overlapping circles, or yeah, so we have three overlapping circles. Each of those overlap points could also be a separate one. So you have the main IP snapshot, you have the three individual circles, then you also have the overlap areas, plus you could even do the center of where the circles all overlap. Those can all be different pink sheets and different ways to expand upon an idea. The metaphor is going to be your context, but it's going to be up on the right hand side. It's going to be using existing metaphors. And whenever we say metaphors, it can be similes or different things along those lines. It doesn't necessarily have to be a metaphor. And sometimes the word metaphor used interchangeably by the non perfectionists out there. So it's using existing neural pathways and immediately applying them into a new context. It helps somebody be able to go, yeah, that makes sense. And some metaphors can be shared on multiple pink sheets. Others can only be used once. So the concept, there's two main things for your concept. You want to have a statement, which is going to be a very quick, it's punchy, it's to the point, and it makes it very memorable. Your explanation is usually going to be something a little bit larger, maybe one or two sentences that's going to kind of pull everything in. And then your content, it's going to be the information down at the bottom. The bottom left is going to be your stats and studies. So I'm sorry, looking at it backwards here with the camera. The lower left is going to be your stats and studies. It's going to be your supporting data, case studies. And the lower right is going to be your stories and anecdotes. Generating ideas. So, how do you go about taking the information in your head and starting to begin to generate ideas with it? People want to hear from us, our experiences, our expertise, whether we choose to believe it or not. And we want to have a notes app for some type of gathering or a notebook, even if it's incomplete and unrefined ones. And this is where being able to use a tool like Obsidian to be able to capture these things, whether it's your metaphors and you have those stored somewhere, your personal stories, maybe your life uh, circumstances and happenings that you've gone through in your life, and you want to be able to quickly take a look down through some of the cool stories that have happened to you that will allow you to be able to kind of put some personal touches on some of the ideas. There's no shame on building upon other people's works. You can use quotes to kickstart our thinking. And they have a pretty neat quote in here. 18th century German philosopher Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, I don't know how to pronounce it, said, "Seldom should we let the urgent take the place of the important, but oftentimes we do." And Dr. Stephen Covey used that to write First Things First, and he built a thought leadership empire based off of that. Elevating others, elevating others, and honoring them elevates ourselves. So, a student says, "That's a great idea." A teacher says, "That's a great idea. How do I share it?" And a thought leader says, "That's a great idea. What do I think about that?" And I think if we all really ask ourselves, we all have on many different topics an opinion about something, and we can kind of put our own thoughts to that and be able to evolve that into additional thinking around the topic. Use yes, but and yes, and to flesh out thoughts. So if somebody makes a statement about something, you can say, "Yes, but what about this? Yes, and have you considered this?" And many authors dwell in content. And I definitely know that coming with having an engineer background, I definitely dwell in content. We like details. Engineers, we like the detail end of things, and that's something that we have to be very cautious about. So, how to start? So you can start anywhere, but when getting started, the middle concept is a great place to start. And if you start at the point, anytime they give advice, have an opinion, make a point, or have a yes, but we have an idea that needs a pink sheet. So if somebody asks you a question, oftentimes, and you have a thought about that, that's a great starting point right there for a new IP snapshot, and you can build it out from there. Once you make your point, think about the idea at a higher, more contextual level, graphically or with an image, and then think about a metaphor we can use for understanding that. Now let's try to capture some of the evidence. And that's going to be where we start to head down towards the content area as well. We back up our points with statistics and stories that prove it. Model behavior. When starting with a model, actually have an entire family sheet. So this is an example of what I was just mentioning about before. Example: if you have a 2x2 matrix, you will have at least 7 different IP snapshots that can come out of a 2x2 matrix. You'll have the 4 boxes themselves, the 2 axes. You can actually create IP snapshots off those, plus the overall concept as well. And then content first. You can also start with creation with an interesting story or a study we read. It may not even know what the point is yet, but we like the story. So in the book, they talk about somebody who was out on I think they were surfing or out in some water and were taken out to sea. And the first thing that they were thinking about is, this is going to make a great story. I don't know how I'm going to be able to utilize this, but we're going to be able to capture this and use it on an IP snapshot at some point. So that is generating the ideas. Now let's talk about models. Remember, models are your contextual tools. They're up at the top, and they're up at the top left. They're kind of more left brain, logical type thinking behavior or thinking patterns. So it's something magical whenever you're able to take and put a model towards some type of intellectual property, something that you're thinking about, an idea, and you can create a model about it. Many other sheets can be generated from a well thought out model. It creates structure and frameworks, and it's able to be created primarily out of lines, shapes, circles, graphs, and it conveys meaning and connections. So they review a couple different great models. Dr. Linda Hill's Collective Genius. It's a Venn diagram. Dr. Stephen Covey's First Things First is a quadrant, and Simon Sinek's Start with Why is concentric circles. The golden, I think it's the golden circles is maybe what he calls it. I can't quite recall off the top of my head. The 4 categories of models. So there's why models, and this could be a simple ladder model, something where you have a certain stack going from top to bottom. It explains reasoning behind an idea, and its job is to communicate value. Currency should be money, earning, saving, time, status, or happiness. And the location is where they currently are, and the aspiration rung of the ladder is they want what is it that they're trying to accomplish? What do they want to reach? And we as thought leaders are able to help people get to where they want to go. Another category of the models are the what. What types of models could be something such as a 3x3 matrix? And there's prescriptions and tactical ideas for the thinking. It's a turn-by-turn directions. You could have, line A, line B, line C, and it has 3 separate stages for each one of those. It has a beginning and an ending step, naming of the rows and columns, and the pathways should give warning signs. So another category of model is a how. A how is a Venn diagram, and it's all about the overview. It creates awareness, provides distinction, and prescriptive actions as well. The prescriptive actions could come in the middle where the circles are overlapping out of the Venn diagram. And they make a note, the intersections can come alive. That's where that action and the prescriptive actions is able to come into play. 4th category of model is the if. And this is where you might be contrasting 2 different frames. You might have an A and a B, and you're trying to talk about something before and after a weight loss picture. It might be something a past contrasted with a future, or it could be good versus bad. And it can sometimes have a 3rd column added that's a bridge between the 2 that you're already trying to differentiate. Bernice McCarthy does a slightly different version in her format model. And the format model is a very popular way of thinking through various topics. Metaphors. Again, metaphors, contextual, top, and it's up on the right-hand side. It's more of a right brain, more of an emotional type of a thing. Taking up space in the mind and communicating massive amounts of meaning in a short amount of time is what the metaphor does. And the power is the picture it creates in a person's mind. And I like the example they use. They say it's the ultimate Trojan horse. See what they did there. And I think that's a great thing because the metaphor, kind of sneakily, it enters your mind. You don't even realize it. And then, the army comes out of the Trojan horse and it expands your thinking to be like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. My wife is an expert at using metaphors with our kids all the time. She likes to pull metaphors out of the air and use them for getting people to realize different things. So it's pretty awesome. Most typically, it's used like a wrestler would do their finishing move. They don't get you to the win, but they're a perfect way to end a bout. And as we become affluent in Pinksheets, we'll see metaphors everywhere. And I notice that myself. I hear them more often. I notice people who are speaking and thought leaders when they use them more often. And when the model and the metaphor are in alignment, the angels sing is what they have in the book. And I think that's a pretty interesting concept. And it shows the importance of making sure those 2 are speaking to each other. So they're the perfect final touch, or as they say, they're the icing on the cake, and they are a practice of their own within the pink sheeting process. And there's so much power in metaphors and there's books written on. I never metaphor I didn't like, and there's just lots of value in that. So the point is the middle concept, the key idea that differentiates one piece of IP from another. So 1 point, 1 sheet, and it can never be duplicated. And the goal of this section is to carefully select the words and focus on, they call it the poetry of the points. They are your book titles and blog post headings, and in 100 years after we're gone, they might remain. And Let me make a quick change to that. They might remain. So the four main ideation strategies for coming up with your concept, your main point, there's the AB statement. There is, as a statement is the title of the book, 10 words at most, but probably less. It's snappy and memorable. And they give an example. Speakership is leadership. Very quick, kind of rhyming, and it kind of rolls right off the tongue. And the B statement is it's carefully worded also. And it will or won't sell a book. It's the idea to someone. Every time you speak in public, you're auditioning for a leadership position. Make it a mantra. Create memorable phrasing around it. Something that the people are going to take home with themselves long after they've left the seminar. Left brain, right brain. So left brain example is earn 500,000 per year, working 50 to 200 days with one or two support staff. Right brain, do work you love with people you like the way you want. And the goal is to stretch the gap between the two statements, between the left brain and the right brain, so you can kind of have some ideas. Then the fourth and final way that they're talking about how you could create an ideation strategy around the concept is pretend you're focused on the age recipient of whoever it is. If they're 7 years old, speakership is leading out loud. 17, speakership is leadership, and every tribe needs a leader. 37, stop managing and start leading. Stop informing and start inspiring. And 70, speakership is the missing link between strategy and execution, between wanting people to do something and inspiring them to act. And I think that if you really dive into this, it all starts to make sense because there's different levels of complexity and what the people might be looking to get out of that type of a statement. Okay. Case studies and stats. So we've gone through context, then we have the concept. Now, if we start looking at the content, down in the lower left-hand area, again, we're talking the logical side, is the case studies and the statistics that are going to back up what it is that we're trying to prove. So it feels similar to stories, but they aren't. And it's a powerful piece of social proof. Case studies, they can have 3 points: an incident, a point, and a benefit. And oftentimes case studies are more number and statistics centered. And I'd say that's your lower left-hand corner. That's your logic. It's going to be supporting media, videos, articles, etc. That can also help. And pictures are powerful, and data conveys meaning. So now we're down on the lower right-hand side, the stories. Don't write an entire story, just the title. So whenever you're filling out your pink sheet, you don't want to write the entire story down underneath the lower right-hand quadrant. You want to just kind of put the title of it or something that's going to quickly jog your memory and remind you of the story that you want to share and maybe the point. And they talk a little bit about stories. There's icon stories where it's somebody we admire, gives us humility, and that elevates us. Don't be the hero. Talk about one. If you talk about yourself as the hero, maybe it pumps you up and it sounds a little braggadocious versus giving that spotlight to somebody else. It actually benefits you by elevating other people. We've talked a little bit about that already here today. Personal, always try to deliver through humility. Rich Dad Poor Dad puts the rich dad on a pedestal, not himself. And I think that's kind of a cool concept where, Kiyosaki's not talking about himself being wealthy in this particular regard. He talks about his dad taught him this. And something could also be anecdotal. And then historical. Matt uses ancient Rome a lot. And when Julius Caesar spoke, this was a concept that they talked about in the book. When Julius Caesar spoke, people wept. When Cicero spoke, armies marched. So it's different ways of conveying emotion and meaning that gets the action that you're hopefully desiring. So Pinksheets 2.0. What this section talks about is, so you have the main pink sheet, you have the context, concept, content, and then it's divided into the left and the right. This is 6 additional things you might want to consider on your pink sheets. One word. If you could summarize one word that is kind of like a main category for this pink sheet, what would that be? Card ranking, giving your snapshot a ranking of a score of 1 to 10. Like, how good do you think that is? Some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be great, and some of them might be kind of lousy. Some of them are going to be incomplete, but the IP snapshots are going to be a living, breathing thing that can continuously improve. Quotes, memorize them, show pictures of the people who did them, or interesting facts about the person. A learning activity, maybe consider a learning activity that you could add because it'll embed a concept. Infographics, they sit on content between case study and story. So they talk about the infographics. It's content. It's a combination though between left side and right side. It brings data and turns it into a visual display. 12 questions, boardrooms, facilitating conversations. So if there was 12 questions that you could maybe come up with that are going to help to ask people different types of questions, open-ended, direct people down a path. I think that's a great suggestion as well, and one that I'd recommend everybody potentially consider whenever you're putting your own pink sheets together. Delivering pink sheets. You have 3 jobs for your practice: to think, to sell, and to deliver. And speakers and authors tell stories, inspire, ask questions, and share facts. And if you want bestsellers, share stories, anecdotes, and applied examples. And I think from coming from somebody like Matt Church, who has written many different types of books on a bunch of different topics, he has a really good handle on what sells and what does not sell at this point. Trainers and mentors, show an idea, focus on concepts, get to the point, stay on point, and don't move off until the audience gets it. And the facilitator and coach asks questions, focusing on the context. Talks a little bit about 6 delivery channels. I'm not going to dive into those in great detail, but just so you know they're there. There's the telling direct author, showing direct mentor, asking direct coach, telling indirect speaker, showing indirect trainer, and asking indirect as the facilitator. In the second example, they go through some examples. So they're famous examples. Stephen Covey's First Things First. All equal quadrants or can be judgmental with one being better than the others. Carol Dweck, Fixed versus Growth Mindset, Contrast between Old versus New, and Simon Sinek, Start with Why. The Golden Circle, it could have had a better metaphor, is what their opinion was. And then Simple Concentric Circles is the actual overall format of that model. Some of their pink sheets that they talked about was the revenue ladder, the cluster strategy, business versus practice, and selling thought leadership. And remember that each of these different pink sheets has multiple pink sheets that could arise out of the use of those pink sheets. And finally, the afterword by P. So P talks about humbling yourself in the process of pink sheeting and thinking of yourself less, not less of yourself. And I think whenever you try to think of come from service to others, your pink sheets will instantly be better. So what they're saying with that is if you stop, just keeping the focus on yourself, but how you can service other people with the information that you provide, all that other stuff is just it's going to fall by the wayside because you're going to be able to make the impact that you want to make. You're going to be able to reach people and convey the thought and meaning that you would like to. Empty your mind daily, collecting your ideas. Practice makes perfect. So don't be afraid to get out there, practice the pink sheets and creating IP snapshots. And it's helpful to think pink sheets come through you, not from you. So like you have these thoughts and the pink sheeting process is going to help to pull all of this together to make it a concise piece of information that's able to be conveyed. All right, again, if you would like to download a copy of this, head over to brandonyeager.com. I believe it's /newsletter. For a limited time, I'm going to be offering this out so that you can download this if you'd like to go through it to help you study. But I want to encourage you. I think that the thought leadership field and space is absolutely amazing, and I think that this book that Matt Church and Peter Cook have put together, it's just phenomenal. I haven't seen anybody quite take this concept and put it into something in a written format like this that is able to help people. I highly recommend it. And if you're into this type of stuff, pick it up. You could probably get that over at his website. I picked it up several years ago, and hopefully you get some enjoyment out of it. Thanks a lot, and we'll catch you later, friends, in the next video. We'll see you.